Mom, I saw Dylan's dad make dinner. Like, actually cook, and it was straight fire. He said it was Blue Apron Assemble and Bake. All the ingredients showed up pre-chopped, and he just laid it out on a baking sheet, and no cap. Dinner was on the table in like 25 minutes. Apparently, it's chef designed, and it has like over 40 grams of protein. That's a lot, right? So maybe we try it. Just saying. You can be the next Dylan's dad. Blue Apron. Get $50 off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code STIR50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
This week's pod is supported by Manscaped. Manscaped has just launched in the UK. We've gone years without using the right tools for the job, and now you can be one of the first people in England to experience Manscaped's life-changing products. Manscaped is a skin-safe trimmer for below-the-belt shaving. Their 7,000 RPM motor has quiet stroke technology, and I know you fellas like a quiet stroke. So they tell us that Manscaped's technology will make your testes their besties, and you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code NQAT at manscaped.com. That's code NQAT for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com.
Welcome to another episode of No Question About That, the podcast about misery, death, and illness this week.
And also maybe some football in there. Maybe.
Yeah. I was away this midweek.
Why were you away this midweek, Paul?
I'm afraid I can't say. And then I listened to the Leipzig game on the radio, and my main thought was, I bet you the game against Arsenal is going to be unbelievably drab. So all this kind of unbelievable joy and excitement and happiness that we're going to miss having the chance to capture will be completely evaporated. And I now absolutely hate football and wish we didn't have to do this show this week.
Such a fair weather fan.
The Arsenal game. It's not that. It's the completely life-sucking. I've committed to this, so I can't just turn the TV off and go do something else. Feeling that you get from a game like that Chelsea game or a game like the game today. I mean,
look. I mean, we'll do a brief conversation about the Leipzig game because it's a few days old now. So everyone's listened to a million podcasts talking about that one already. Get into today's absolute wet blanket of a game in inverted commas. 0.39 XG for United, and Arsenal just broke the one, but that included the penalty. So not great.
So 0.25 from open play from Arsenal.
Yeah.
Then.
Talk about some news. Stiles and Charlton, very sad there, and look forward to the game against Istanbul Başakşehir in midweek.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention despotic totalitarianism in the.
Yeah, but enough about Jose Mourinho. They play later. It's fun and games. Yeah. So Leipzig. I mean, the funny thing about the Leipzig game is that obviously United played way better, but in the first half against Leipzig, it didn't feel quite balanced. And the team struggled to get into any attacking situations. So I was just looking at the data, only 15% possession inside the attacking third in the first half against Leipzig, just a touch more than that today. Pretty ineffective actually for a long period against Leipzig, and obviously got the goal earlier, which did mean as we got into the second half of the second half, the final quarter, of the game against Leipzig that Leipzig had to come and attack, and they just really couldn't handle United in the transition at all, especially after Marcus Rashford came on. So, there were echoes a little bit. 5-0, I think, probably flattered United a bit. Although, the goals were absolutely outstanding, weren't they? I mean, almost all of them.
Yeah, and just what because, Andy Burnham had tweeted before the Chelsea game, if there is a God, then Marcus Rashford's getting a hat-trick today. It's like, just a few days. The Lord works in mysterious ways. Just a few days later. And the fact that, he gave the penalty to Martial because Martial really needed a goal when he was on 2. He never scored a hat-trick for United, could easily have had it, but instead was generous about it and still got a hat-trick. I mean, it couldn't have been more beautiful. It couldn't have been more of a kind of, just the exact opposite of the last 2 hours, really. Just elating and life-affirming and, good things happening to good people, because Marcus Rashford had been the centre of national discourse in a way that no footballer has been for positive reasons at any point in my lifetime. And then here we go. After that, after all these incredible feats off the pitch, he smashes it at his day job, and the goals were unbelievable. The one where he does the little shimmy out of his feet, and then the finish, just hit it like an actual literal foot, like a traction engine.
Yeah, look, I mean, the great goal started with Mason, of course.
Yeah, what a
lovely finish for him, and I guess for different reasons he needed that. Not quite smashing it off the pitch, or maybe smashing it off the pitch a bit too much, and that's part of his problem. But throughout the team of recent games, back in it, and left foot, right foot, doesn't really matter for Mason, does it? Just awesome finish again. And it set the platform for United, even though it wasn't particularly fluent in that first half. It certainly set the platform for what came later. And some lovely finishing from Rashford. You mentioned Martial got his goal. We'll come on to it in a bit, but I thought he was missed against Arsenal. He is better with his back. He's a more natural number 9 than Marcus Rashford, for sure. And able to bring players into the game. I mean, he still prefers the ball in front of him. But good for him. First goal of the season, wasn't it? For Martial, needed that one. And has set United up, really well. So 2 games, 2 wins. We'll go to Istanbul later in the week. You'd expect to win there because they're not particularly good. I mean, I've only seen them once, so I'm basing this entirely on a very small sample size, which was their game against Copenhagen in the Europa League last year, and they weren't very good. They made a few signings since then, including our very own Raphael. So United are going to be in a really strong position, I think, after 3 games, unlike in the Premier League, which we are not.
Yeah, worth saying about the Leipzig game, Fred was extremely involved.
Yeah, he had a really good game.
His XG chain for that game must be super high because he's involved in all the goals in the build-up to all the goals. It looked to me like Pogba had his best game this season, which was in stark contrast to what happened. I mean,
he looked all the sea against Arsenal, and we'll talk about this. But he was effective left side of the diamond. Against Leipzig, and had freedom, got forward a lot, played some really nice passes. He was obviously involved in the opening goal, wasn't he? So he made the pass for Mason.
Yeah, fantastic ball.
Yeah, threaded through. Mason just onside, and made some doing the things that Pogba does best. Which is when he can get into the attacking areas of the pitch, he can cause a lot of damage.
And Van der Beek in the starting lineup ahead of Fernandes, literally just like-for-like replacement, squad management, all the headlines, all the talk, all the scuttlebutt about Van der Beek, and then he just went ahead and started him in the Champions League. Carl using a brilliant analogy, and a friend of the show, Carl Anker, using a brilliant analogy on The Athletic, saying, when you buy a coat in the summer sales for 40 quid because you know you're going to need it in December. That's Donny van der Beek, which I thought was quite a nice analogy. But
yes,
anyway,
although to be fairer with that analogy, it is that because there are going to be a lot of games this season. Solskjaer's been really clear about that one. It's just when you've got 3 other winter coats already, you just wonder whether you really needed it.
And no trousers. Yeah. So, yeah, it was lovely. And I was driving along in my car, listening to it on the radio, fully like punch in the air. And just, I was in a residential neighbourhood at that point, so I didn't bib the horn, but I would have done if I was able to. It was electric and life-enhancing and beautiful that Marcus Rashford got a hat-trick. And that is basically the last happy thing that's going to be said on this show. So tune out now if you came for the fun, joyous ride. We're about to get dark. I thought that Solskjaer really... I mean, whenever United play well and win, I get messages from a number of people, one person in particular, you know who you are, hello, saying, "Oh, bet you feel stupid now. See, Ollie's great." It's like, well, what about after the game that's just been, where he's made a load of massive mistakes, and at no point have we ever said he's rubbish. We're just like, for every good, there's an equal and opposite bad. And like, yeah, United are in a better place than they've been for a long time, but he, I mean, there was one in particular. I thought Pogba was spectacularly disastrous today. Fred had a rough game, but this one to me was actually about systems, about decisions, about substitutions, about the things that the manager is supposed to do.
Yes,
and I
think your mum's pretty harsh messaging you like that. Really, she should go easy on you after all these years. But no, it's not Paul's mum. It's not Paul's mum. I'm sending it under a pseudonym. So, look, I'm 100% in agreement with you, and I did wonder whether we'd come to this conclusion or not. I think Ollie has... He used a diamond to try and get Paul Pogba into the team, we assume, in midweek, and we talked about it before, didn't we? In fact, maybe even on last week's show about how could we get Fernandes, Pogba and Van der Beek in the side more often. Well, Fernandes wasn't in this one, but talked about the option being the diamond. Sorry, the Leipzig game. The option being the diamond, and the real weakness there is with your fullbacks. Now, or if you don't have attacking fullbacks, it's with your fullbacks or dynamic fullbacks. So I feel Ollie is quite reactive quite often, and I'm very rarely surprised if he plays the same system in 2 games in a row, especially after a win, because United were successful, and let's move on from that one and do it again. But against an Arsenal side that really plays 3 up front, really really high, and sort of wing backs, this is going to be a weakness for United. Because often they'll be able to create an overload. And time again in that first half, they created overloads on the left-hand side of United's, of their attack and the right-hand side of United's defence. And, it was their outball all the time. And the change in system had to come, and it did come at half-time. I mean, it had to come. But the exact weakness of that particular system against the system Arsenal was playing kind of played out.
This is the thing. It's like it was a really good idea to play that system against Leipzig, and not just because we won. That's not the reason it was a good idea. It was a good tool for the task at hand, and in this game, particularly with the personnel, because they're not the same. It's not the same when you play the same system with different players. Fred played on the right of the midfield diamond against Leipzig. Fred played at the base of the diamond in this game with McTominay on the right, and the whole thing, I mean, Pogba putting in a 10 out of 10 disaster class is obviously not helping things on the left. That's not an Ole problem. You think Pogba on the left of a diamond, perfect, beautiful. No problem with that in theory. But the rest of it, the balance wasn't right. And you mentioned Martial being a natural number 9 in a way that Rashford is. I mean, I actually think that the two of them together at the front of a diamond is a brilliant idea. I think they could be really a really complementary front two, Martial and Rashford. But Greenwood and Rashford, it's a different proposition. So to just be like, we won 5-0 using the diamond, that should work now. I mean, Ollie's not stupid. I'm not saying that's how he thinks. But as you say, the first halftime tweak was perfect. Shifted the system around, gave United a measure of control, and from them until Matic comes on, United are really bossing that game. Then he brought Matic on and surrendered so much impetus, and then for some reason, with United chasing the game, decided that Bruno was the one of the attacking midfielders who needed to come off of Van der Beek when Pogba was absolutely stinking up the joint.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bruno looked
to this
shattered,
show,
which is why he's come off. I mean, it's for sure physical. Anyway, finish your point.
Well, yeah, listeners to this show know that my defensiveness over Paul Pogba is not particularly rational. Like I am a staunch Pogba-ister, but he was rubbish in this game. And yeah, Bruno kind of did look. He did look tired in this game, but he didn't play in midweek. And we've got a game coming up that he could play Van der Beek in that game in theory. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, look, it started at the beginning with the formation. It was the wrong formation for the game and the opposition, and it was obvious it wasn't working after 20 minutes. I mean, could have made the switch then.
And why didn't he? That's the other thing. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, this is looking a bit dodgy. We couldn't get out of our own half. The only time the ball got out of there's a couple of times where we started like fairly promising counters, and there were like little moments when something might have come off and might have happened. But the level of threading the needle that we were looking for, especially given the personnel on the pitch. I mean, McTominay tried to thread the needle right at the end of that game, and I thought, like, listen, you're really good at some things, but the silken through ball is not necessarily Scott McTominay's game, is it?
No, that's right. I mean, look, it looked like United were short of a player in midfield. I mean, Fernandes was staying high up the pitch, as he does, and Greenwood kept dropping back, leaving Marcus Rashford on his own up there, and it wasn't sticking, and United felt light in midfield, and, I mean, weren't lighter in midfield, although Thomas Partey, as we all know and saw before and have known for many years, is a high-quality addition. Finally, Arsenal have got some balance in there. It's very sad that they seem to have bought someone actually decent. But, it felt like they had an extra player because they were just so effective across midfield, and United weren't. And they had width in Bellerin and particularly in Saka, and just a balance of Tierney, Saka, Aubameyang down that left-hand side gave them an attacking outlet all the time. It wasn't quite the same with Bellerin and Willian Holding, but I mean, probably Holding's like more reluctant to push forward with the ball, isn't he? And not as good in possession. But United had none of that. We just didn't have that balance in it felt lopsided right from the beginning of the game, and we weren't able to get a hold of the ball at all. And the only thing that saved us from going behind earlier was, Willian clipped the bar, and who was it that put the header over? Can't remember now. From Bellerin's cross, and the header just over from 6 yards out was probably their best chance of the game, to be honest. Otherwise, would have been chasing the game from earlier. But look, the switch came at halftime, and for 20 minutes or so, United were much more on the front foot. Paul Pogba was basically left side of the front three, which, I don't think anyone's going to say that's his natural position, but at least he's high up the pitch, which is where you want him. The one time
a long way
he decides to bloody cover and he's covering for Luke Shaw is a bit out of position. And, tackling has never been Paul Pogba's strong point. It's okay. You can do one thing really well, or lots of things well, and be not good at some things. But that's a horrible attempt. Just a horrible attempt to make a tackle. And totally unnecessary.
Yeah, and really, really, obviously, but really key because, Arsenal, that Willian one wasn't a good chance. It was just a good shot. And then that one good header, and Lacazette swung and missed at one, unmarked on the penalty spot. But they weren't creating much. They were just really effective in stopping United, and they probably looked a bit more likely to create, but not in those 20 minutes. So to just give them, I mean, really and truly give them a penalty was such a like, you're just watching that, tearing your hair out, going, just make okay decisions. Like, you don't have to make good decisions, just make okay. Don't make absolutely egregiously terrible decisions. It's egregious. It's preposterous.
I mean, it was awful. It was truly awful decision. That one moment on top of a game that was really poor from Pogba, but really poor from a lot of people in this game. I mean, United had just no attacking output at all. I mean, a lot because it's very, very narrow, and Arsenal actually had quite an easy time defending with their narrow defensive formation and our narrow attacking formation. And you'd hope that you would have a couple of fullbacks who'd be able to make the space in behind the two wing-backs, but just aren't able to. I mean, Shaw had a decent game, didn't he? And he had a good game in midweek as well. And, I mean, Alex Telles we won't see maybe we can see him in a week's time or so. He said he was diagnosed with COVID, symptomless apparently, but obviously has to quarantine. Then he'll have to get back into training. So but on the right side, we're never going to get much attacking output out of Wan-Bissaka, as we've discussed so often. So it was not a good. And even with the changes, right, we don't have the width anywhere in the squad, basically, in order to take advantage of the opposition's weakness.
And it made it easy for Arteta to park the bus, which he did, and just kept bringing on more and more defenders at the end. I guess he brought Nketiah on, but anyway, mostly just defenders. A word of, I don't know, praise is too strong a word, but a word of for Luke Shaw, which is that he was not terrible, put in one really good cross. Nobody was on the end of it, but, considering what we normally say about Luke Shaw, particularly playing at left back, whatever, he was not terrible in this game. I'm trying to think of a positive performance. There was a shot straight at De Gea, which he saved, which is always reassuring. That's me done. Partey looks good. That's annoying. I've got nothing else to say about this game, and that's 2 games in a row that trying to talk about them. And it's not United's fault that we took midweek off recording a podcast when they won 5-0 in spectacular fashion in the Champions League, with the nation's sweetheart scoring an unbelievable 16-minute hat-trick. Only the second hat-trick in United history scored by a substitute, which is pretty remarkable.
So, I mean, one of the things that we have to kind of talk about is where United are in the Premier League table now. So 15th, and if Brighton beat Spurs later on, will be 16th in the Premier League table. And so it's not everything, because, of course, we've won a couple of games in the Champions League and played a game less than quite a lot of teams. And it's draws against Arsenal and Chelsea, which aren't disasters.
No, we lost to Arsenal.
We lost to Arsenal. Disaster. Scratch that, everything I just said for the last 3 seconds. So, a few mitigating circumstances, but it is a long way from the start that United would have wanted.
Oh, yeah. And really difficult to get the start you want after a summer like that, which is no fault of Solskjaer's whatsoever, either on a practical sense in terms of pre-season or the squad building sense, which we know is a absolute catastrophe. So, Solskjaer has plenty of mitigation in that regard. And actually, some of the frustration with him in particular is about how vitally important it is for United to have any chance for him to be really on it all the time. And he's going to make mistakes. It's not completely unreasonable to say, okay, well, that system worked quite effectively in that last game. Let's give it another go. and maybe let me see what McTominay's like in a more like just fully box to box role. Can he do it? Some of this is about maybe building something longer term. So, maybe there's some mitigation for Solskjaer there as well in the short term, as well as the sort of problems that he's dealing with in the longer term. But yeah, it's just not good enough, is it? Like, I mean, I don't mean not good enough for us. I just mean if they're trying to be out there claiming they're Man United, they've really got to be doing a lot better than they're doing. Not good enough from some big players, and definitely not good enough.
I mean, look, I think the inconsistency is a lot of what I expected, given that perhaps I didn't expect it quite so early in the season, although definite mitigation in the defeat to Palace. It's hard to find any solace in the defeat to Spurs, of course, and today was from there. But I expected inconsistency because it's going to be a really hard season, and United are not set up well as a squad. I mean, a lot of squad players, but we know that there's plenty of them that really aren't good enough for a consistent top 1, 2, 3 in the Premier League, right? There's plenty of problems in this squad, and loads of so imbalanced still. I mean, the fact that we have 4 players that would like to play number 10, they'd say that's their best position: Fernandes, Van der Beek, Pogba, Juan Mata.
I forgot about Juan Mata.
Forgot about little Juan Mata. I mean, he hasn't let himself down in any of his games so far.
No, it's true.
No wide players at all. None. I mean, Facundo Pellistri, who, a kid, just come from...
Forgot about him too.
Yeah, I mean, a kid who's just come from Uruguay, played for the under-23s this week in a completely weird game in which like half the squad, anyone who's playing in the first team bubble, couldn't even share a dressing room with anyone who's in the under-23s bubble. So like no training, different team talks. And then we got Diallo coming in January. I mean, the kids, you can't expect them to fill out. Most of the time, you wouldn't expect kids from another country to fill out the first team squad and solve the problems there. So it's going to be a season-long problem of having this imbalance in the squad. And I do think Ole gets himself into problems often, not all the time, but often when he's trying to tinker with the side in order to fix this lack of balance that he has in his squad, which is the diamond is to do that. He's trying to get his best players in there all the time and do something, because he knows that if he plays Pogba in a double pivot, it's not defensively the most solid. If he plays Fred and McTominay in there, it's more solid defensively, but how does he get Pogba into the side? And he's trying to do all this.
Absolutely. And it's going to continue to be a problem. And we're going to continue to bring you the best in... somebody called us impartial the other day. I think I might have talked about that on the show.
Definitely not impartial.
No, highly partial, but hopefully vaguely analytical coverage. Although, I'm in one of... Every now and again, the idea that somehow I've got to find something to talk about this nonsense. Because almost everything both of us have said today, we've said before.
Of course, so, and we're going to continue because the same problems will be there.
So why would anyone want to listen to this? That's my question. Anyway.
Well, now we have reason to just randomly chuck in quotes from Seinfeld, because Ole confessed this week that he's been watching Seinfeld, which got a mixed reaction on the internet. A lot of people seem to think that he shouldn't have any kind of social life if he's...
Really?
I mean, it's not that that's a social life, sitting on your sofa. He should be watching football 24/7 till his eyes bleed red.
People say stuff, yada yada yada. We move on.
That will be the episode title, by the way.
Ole's yada yada yada, definitely. Ole is going to get home and his wife's going to be like, "No soup for you," because they were bad today, and so he can't have any soup. Seinfeld is good. I'm sure. Maybe that's what he's watching on his little monitor.
You think he's got data up there or replays? No. That's how he's got through 5 seasons of Seinfeld since the last week.
Yeah. It doesn't take long, though, does it? I mean, who among us cannot say we have not watched an embarrassingly large amount of a television show in a short space of time at some point during this year? Talking of this year, we should say the UK is going into another national lockdown, slightly different from the first one. There's a number more mitigations. It's more like the sort of second phase of the first lockdown, and that was the time at which Premier League football came back. Now, my understanding is that Premier League football is going to be unaffected by this and crack on.
We're going to crack on, putting in, mediocre performances, and the team will too. So, anyway, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll talk about a little bit of sad news and look forward to a Champions League game.
If you want more from the show in between shows, check us out on the socials. We are NQAT Pod on Instagram, Ed's at NQAT Pod on Twitter, and we are under our real names on Facebook at No Question About That. Yeah, so two really sad pieces of news coming out of United this week. And I guess we'll start with Sir Bobby Charlton being diagnosed with dementia. I mean, nobody, I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has been affected in some way by someone that they know or, family having dementia. It's such a common, such a prevalent illness, I should say, among older people. And of course, it's a really horrible one. And obviously our thoughts go out to, Sir Bobby's family. There's no, if you started a kind of premature eulogy for Sir Bobby Charlton and his relationship with Manchester United, there's no end to it.
Right.
He's one of two people that have a stand named after him at the ground, and he's beyond. It's beyond the status of club legend. He's something even more than that. He's in the pantheon of Manchester United. Whoever you put on your Manchester United Mount Rushmore, He's the first name on the team sheet of the Manchester United Mount Rushmore, isn't he? But
incredibly sad news and just a horrible condition. Because it's one of those ones that drags on for years and years and years and can be a massive burden on the family, as well as the sufferer as well. And so it's it's devastating news, and. I mean, unfortunately, there's a huge amount of footballers of his particular age cohort who suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's and related diseases. Heavy balls, a lot of heading it. It's I can't link them obviously specifically in this case, but it's very common. It's very common. Yeah. And then the other piece of sad news was the death of Nobby Stiles. I mean, a few years younger than Bobby Charlton, but had been suffering with Alzheimer's for some time, right? So
Yeah, prostate cancer and advanced dementia by the time that he went. So, like you say, another footballer of that era suffering with that absolutely horrible illness. I mean, Nobby Stiles... Of course, I'm sure that most people who choose to take time to listen to a United podcast a couple of times a week are familiar with Nobby Stiles, but he isn't the universal household name in the way that Bobby Charlton is, although to a certain generation he most certainly is, because he was in the 1966 World Cup winning team with Charlton, and they both won the European Cup together 2 years later. Everybody, I'm sure, can close their eyes and picture the toothless grin of Nobby Stiles, the amazing picture outside Old Trafford on the wall of sort of legends of him just kind of with his arm over the wall, leaning up against the post, smiling. That fantastic photo of him flicking the V's at Man City.
Mm-hmm. Real character. And I mean, obviously, he stopped playing for United before I was born, so I have no, first-hand recollection of seeing him play. But a huge part in United's history. More than 400 games for the club, and part of that 68 European Cup winning side as well as the World Cup winning side. And then came back to United later on as a sort of coach. He had 3 spells as a manager. He retired in 75 and then managed Preston, Vancouver Whitecaps and West Bromwich Albion. None with, huge success. But, he had 10 years as a manager with those 3 teams and then came to United. And, there's some nice posts from some of the class of 92 talking about his impact as a coach when they were at the club. He'll be missed. And like a sad note, of course, that he was one of a generation of United players who had to sell their medals and trophies and memorabilia in order to make it. And it's long been a bone of contention or a discussion point about how much the club should support ex-players. The PFA does, of course. But he is definitely not the last to have needed that money in retirement.
Yeah, and worth saying that in I'm quoting from a BBC article here, in a BBC documentary screened in 2017, Stiles' son John told former England captain Alan Shearer he was utterly convinced heading of football was responsible for his father's dementia. So we should be honest in these conversations, obviously.
Look, sport shies away from having this conversation. Basically, obviously there was a huge lawsuit in the States, collective action with the NFL, and the NFL's ended up paying $1.5 billion or something like that out to victims. Football has not had that conversation about the link between heading a ball and dementia. Or related conditions, and I don't think football wants to have that, because to start investigating it might be to come up with an answer you really don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just a massive figure at the club on the pitch and off it, because you mentioned the class of 92, and he was their first United coach, and imagine what a kind of impact and legacy that is. Interestingly enough, Mark Lawrenson, because he won promotion while manager of Preston, and Mark Lawrenson said that more than anyone, he made me into a player. So clearly, like somebody with an aptitude for passing on his knowledge of the game. We saw him.
He was never a pundit, Nobby, so we can't blame him for Lawrenson's punditry, can we?
No, but we saw him in that '68 final against Eusebio, and he was just an all-action, tough-tackling midfielder of, the variety that might work at the base of a midfield diamond.
Good segue. Let's move on then to the midweek fixture at İstanbul Başakşehir. We talked a little bit about them in the lead up to the United's game with Copenhagen last season, didn't we? Because I managed to see Copenhagen outplay Istanbul that time. They've got some players that you might recognise, though, haven't they? So, I wouldn't say they've got a lot of really good players, at least none that I recognise as being really good. But they've got Raphael, who,
excuse me, I just would like to say there is a player I recognise as being really good.
Yeah. I was looking at them a couple of weeks back, just to... I'd seen Raphael had gone, and I was just looking at the results and stuff like that, and I noticed in one of the games he played in central midfield, which brought back some memories, didn't it?
They're struggling a bit this season so far. They're only 7th in the Super League in Turkey, which is unusual because they've been right at the top end of it for a little while now.
Yeah, so Raphael, and they've got a few. Who are the other players I recognise? Demba Ba, Mehmet Topal, Martin Skirtle. So a few. I'm sure they've got better players than that lot. They're danger players, Edin Viska, the Bosnian player, Giuliano, who sounds like he should be a really famous Brazilian, but he's probably a sort of generic Brazilian who's never done much in his career, and journeymans around some of the leagues. Nasser Chadli, the former Spurs player, you'll remember. Spurs and West Brom, was it? He had another team, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think Pochettino liked him very much from what I remember. In Demba Ba and Raphael, that's two of the most likeable Premier League players in history right there. The Demba Ba strawberry syrup interview before a Man United Chelsea game was when the interviewer asked him, "Is that good for you?" And he looked at him and went, "I think so." It's like, really good. I have to say, Raphael he hasn't talked that much about politics, Raphael, but he did retweet Lucas Moura celebrating after the recent, well, not so recent Brazilian presidential election. So the fact that he's playing for a team that are in the favour of a not particularly pleasant ruler is maybe not that surprising.
Do you think it was on his list, was it?
Yeah, play for a despot. It's such a shame. Raphael's likability as a person and relation to Manchester United are so far at odds. I can't imagine. I bet Fred is a Bolsonaro man as well.
I don't want to look into it. Yeah, I mean, but
it's all that sort of evangelical Christian Brazilian footballer that they do tend to be Bolsonaro boys.
So he played today, Raphael, at right back, as Başakşehir won 2-1 against Konyaspor. They're playing a 4-2-3-1, so, your stock European formation. Let's see what they do. Let's assume that that's a pretty easy pick for Ole then, and they'll probably match up with that one. We don't know. Give me the eyes there. This is a podcast, so you can't see that. But we'll see. But I think match up, and then United should win because United are the better side here, and there's a lot of incentive to go out and give it a strong side, and because win this game, and you probably only need another point to qualify from this group, and there's likely to be a dead rubber or two at the end of the group in which you can start resting players. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's a massive one in the sense that we've done so well. It's an absolute dream start to the Champions League campaign. I mean, it's David Moyes-esque. This starts the Champions League campaign. In fact, the start to the season across the board, pretty much David Moyes-esque. Brilliant in the Champions League, dreadful in the league.
They lost their two Champions League games 2-0 each time against RB Leipzig, away and home to PSG.
Yeah. But, you'd imagine that the return fixture at Old Trafford against PSG might be a tougher test. Well, not even a tougher test, but, you couldn't guarantee that we'll negotiate that test as successfully as we did in the one in Paris. And Leipzig, I do think, will be better the next time they play us. They surely can't be as open for a big stretch of that game. They might play slightly less of a high line, given what happened at the end of that one. But a win here and practically qualified, aren't we? To all intents and purposes.
The return game for this one is the next one as well in the Champions League, which is typical formatting. So. The games against RB Leipzig and PSG should be dead rubbers. Should be a free hit, basically.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Right. We're going to do a podcast after that one, so we don't have to talk about the next weekend's game. And then after next weekend, is there an international break? There's one fairly soon, isn't there? And I think we've got maybe we've got Everton before the international break.
We do have Everton next weekend, and then you might be right. It might be the international break then.
Yeah, so we play Everton. So it's Istanbul, Everton, then West Brom on the 21st, and then Istanbul again on the 24th. So you were right about the balance of fixtures in the group. But yeah, so two big games, because if we win both of these games and go into the international break having more or less qualified from our Champions League group and back in the mix to an extent in the Premier League, Everton have been floundering a little bit
lost two on the spin.
After their brilliant start. So, yeah, I mean, a very doomy, gloomy first half of the show. I just really, it's just totally subjective. I absolutely hated every minute of that game. It was just miserable to watch, and I just wasn't in the mood to watch a miserable game of football, But things could look up pretty quickly.
They could do. They could do, and in the meantime, if they don't look up, you can always take up watching Seinfeld for the 50th time.
That sounds ideal to me. Pretty good. No, that's the other one. Yeah. All right. Right. We will. What's the deal with podcasts? Why do they go on so long? What do you think the deal will be with the score between Manchester United and Istanbul?
I'm going to say 3-0 to United.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say 1-0 to United. Thanks for listening, Patreon backers. Stay tuned for our chat about football all around the country this weekend. And everyone else, we will see you on probably Friday next week. Take care till then.
Is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Don't give up comfort for style. Mack Weldon's Ace Collection makes it effortless to look good while feeling comfortable. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code MAC25.